And I think Jim Burke said a great thing about selling your book to the movies. He says it's kind of like selling them a car. When it was yours, you drove it.
Yeah.
And then you sell it, you know, and it's theirs, and they get to drive it, and it's no reflection on you if they crash it or whatever it might happen to be.
I once attended a screenwriting seminar put on by Jeff Arch, who wrote Sleepless in Seattle. And he started his seminar. There's all these aspiring screenwriters out there, and he had this big easel, and he wrote on it. The first thing he wrote, one, when you cash the check, it's not your movie, it's their movie. He said, yeah, it's just like, he didn't say car, he said house, but he said, if you sell somebody a house, you can't come back 2 weeks later and say, I don't like what you're doing with the draperies, you know. It's their house now.
Let's not recarpet.
Right.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with it. And, you know, wouldn't it be ironic if after all these years of writing all this great humor and whatever it is, you become infamous or notorious, whatever it might be, for whatever movie version they make out of Big Trouble?
Well, fortunately, the author never seems to get much blame or credit.
No.
You know, it's rare when anybody even knows who wrote the book that the movie's based on, unless it's somebody really well known. Like Carl got some grief for Striptease, which was not viewed as a great movie.
So did Sarah Paretsky.
But they changed it so much from, you know, from what Carl wrote. So, yeah.
So, I remember what they called it, but it was based on her V.I. Wachowski character and that. You know, but heck, if you go back to Hammett and Chandler, they did, you know, their stuff was adapted for the screen, and oftentimes they did the screenplay.
Right, and yeah, I was going to say, those were often, though, pretty, again, pretty close adaptations. But that doesn't seem to be what generally movie people want to do.
So you also have a career as a speechwriter. Is there any truly memorable moment we can end up on as a person who makes speeches all over the country?
Well, it's not like that's pretty much all the same thing. You know, you get up, you tell jokes, they laugh,
and it blurs.
Yeah, it does tend to blur together. It's kind of refreshing, just because when you write, you never hear anybody laugh. And when you talk, you do, but it's such a different skill. Things that I think are going to be hilarious, you know, and I think work well in writing do not always, I've learned to work in a speech, it has to be a much simpler story with a much simpler point that you can sort of draw out and then hammer with timing. And you can be much subtler and craftier with your humor in writing. And I've really learned the hard way to never make the two, you know, come together.
You're a real Renaissance guy. I mean, here you are doing.
Well, you've heard me play the guitar, so you know how bad I am at that aspect. I'm not.
But it must be sort of difficult to do all the scheduling for this. I mean, you're doing speeches. You have to hit your deadline with your column. Presumably, it's syndicated. What, in like 600 papers?
Yeah.
So there'd be a lot of really angry folks.
Yeah. Well, it's newspaper training. You know, you always know what the next most important thing is that you have to get written, and that's what you do. And I never let anything else get in the way of writing, you know.
So it's just focus, focus, focus.
Yeah, when you're doing it, you really have to do it. And fortunately, my wife is a sports writer, so she spends her days, you know, like on deadline all the time. So it's not hard for me. I mean, the discipline notion is already instilled in our house. You know, we both know that the other one has deadlines, and we take it pretty seriously. So that part anyway.
Well, I'm really pleased that out of this busy schedule, you were able to carve an afternoon to come to.
Well, I've been coming to the studio every day for weeks, and you finally let me be on the show. I appreciate it.
I couldn't stand it with your face up against the door. Your nose.
Come on, let me be on the show.
Oh,
I can dance.
I love it. You could bring the guitar. What I really hope is that
away
someday you will come back, and not on a book tour, so that you actually have time to see a little bit, because, you know, book tours just like in and out of the hotel,
I saw it
right?
flying in. There's like a tremendous amount of nothing around here.
There is.
Miles and miles.
But those of us who live here feel that,
no, then you come to something.
It's all encroaching. I mean, we're morphing into Los Angeles every day.
No, really?
It's kind of unnerving if you came here for wide open spaces to see that. But there's a lot of real beauty in Arizona, and it's a shame, you know, to come in and zip out again in the morning and not really get to see it. So I hope, unfortunately...
Well, talk to my publicist. They're the ones... My theory is that they figure your book will be worth more if you're dead. So they just send you out, and, you know, you're never allowed to stay more than one day in a city, because then you would get some sleep.
There's that, and I know that you are probably short on it since you got up really early this morning, and by your clock, it's already dinner time, even though we're in the shank of the afternoon. I want to thank you very much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And I thank all of you. Well, by the way, I always muff that line. I can't say it. I want to thank all of you.
I want to thank you, too.
for coming to join us in another episode of the Criminal Calendar. I think I really do.